Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. We have some wintry conditions taking place across the nation. This is a look at area travel. It's impacted in the nation's midsection from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and Wyoming into the high plains of Kansas, Nebraska. There is rain shower activity moving through the Gulf where it's much needed, all the way from Houston and into portions of the Mississippi River Delta. And that extends all the way northward into the Mississippi headwaters of Minnesota. I'm going to take a look at the radar, and we're going to look at a road report this morning as wintry impacts in wave one of wintry weather make its way through now on this Christmas Eve midday. It will last through the day today as it works its way out to the east. And then round two develops, and that one promises to be more potent. We could have areas of icing, more wintry conditions. We have blizzard warnings, we have winter weather advisories, we have winter storm watches and warnings. Let's get right to it, and starting with a look at the radar. First and foremost, we do have rain from Minnesota in late December all the way south to Houston. That goes right through Kansas City, western parts of Iowa in the green. There's a smattering of winter weather products in the nation's midsection, while the coasts are fairly quiet. A little snow off in the high country of Washington State. Other than that, Dallas, heavy rain moving through. That extends out to Jackson, Mississippi on the south side. Now, as we look a little bit closer here, we do have some blizzard highlights in pink. The yellow indicative of some winter storm watches in South Dakota and in the Omaha area into northern Kansas. Winter storm warnings are in the deep red colors in the mountains of southern Colorado. That's west of the Pueblo area. And there's winter storm warnings in the high country of eastern Colorado, where snow and wind is combining to create travel trickery as well. In the northern plains, winter weather advisories, icy travel, and some snow showing up on the radar in blue. As we go in a little bit closer, today's weather-making system has a blizzard warning in effect out in parts of Nebraska. And as we look at the text with this, so that we get this straight here, because there are a couple of waves. Snow accumulations of 1 to 4 inches, but the gusty winds to 45 miles per hour will cause some problems with blizzard conditions and a blizzard warning. Then total snow accumulations by the time that both waves make their way through are 4 to 9 inches. This blizzard warning is in effect from late tonight on Christmas Eve. Okay, so it's not in effect yet, but late tonight into Wednesday. Okay. That is several days of blizzard impacts to travel in the nation's midsection. Keep that in mind. Now, that's just a look at what the National Weather Service out there in parts of Nebraska are doing. That extends almost to Omaha. Omaha is in the yellow. Lincoln, Beatrice in the yellow. Kearney, Nebraska is in the pink, which is the blizzard warning. The yellow is a winter storm watch. It's for the same system that will be making its way out as we go from Monday or Christmas late in the day and into the day on Wednesday, a multi-day system. The winter storm watch extends into northern parts of South Dakota from the state capital Pierre all the way up into the northeast quadrant near the I-29 corridor. But I will say there's no highlights about this yet from the Weather Service. There is a risk for some very significant icing from northeast South Dakota right into central and northern Minnesota, where we have about a 50 to 70% chance of up to a quarter to 1/2 of an inch of accumulating ice with wind gusts over 40 miles per hour. Again, that's Christmas Day and into the night, all the way through Wednesday morning. So that's a look at the nation's weather right now. I do want to take a look at some road reports. And I want to let you know that if you're traveling through these areas, there could be some impacts to air travel. Check your call and call ahead to your local airport there to get the very latest on that. But certainly there's going to be real strong impacts to road travel across the Rocky Mountains. So now we're going to take a look at some really cool features that you can check on your own. As a meteorologist, I want to put the tools in your hands to make decisions for what you're comfortable traveling in. With a blizzard warning in place, that really gets going as we go from the high country of Nebraska, the elevated terrain and high plains of Nebraska and South Dakota, into the I-29 corridor of the Dakotas, and even as far south as Kansas and Nebraska near Omaha. Road travel could get kind of tricky. So you'll want to check the road reports, and you can do that in often cases by searching the state you're traveling in and their DOT page, and they'll get you to that travel information. Much of the nation has for instance, Minnesota 511. You search MN 511, it'll take you to the page. Same thing for South Dakota, same thing for many states. Let's get to those pieces of content right now. We're going to start where there's snow flying right now, and we'll go ahead and start with Colorado. If you're taking a holiday ski trip up into the mountains, well, I got some news for you. We're going to be expecting the conditions to be deteriorating across portions of Colorado. So as we take a look at this page while it loads up, there's Colorado highlighted with all the plow cams. So the plows are out in earnest. Northeast Colorado from the Sterling area all the way into the, well, basically the metro area as you approach Fort Morgan. They have the plows running pretty strongly. We can take a look at a plow cam on this too, and you can see from the front seat of the plow what they're seeing with these bands of snow making their way through. And again, you can click on any one of these images and get a picture for what's going on. Not far from the I-76 corridor here, we do have a report of a crash as well. So those show up on these pages, giving you some insight into what's going on. Now let's check out the metro area. In Denver, things are not too bad with regards to huge snowfall amounts right now. But if you get into the I-70 corridor and you're heading up to, say, Winter Park, Vail, or anything like that, there's some significant impacts to the road conditions there. Let's sneak down and let's take a look at what we have going on here. This is Black Hawk. This is Central City. Here's the metro area. Golden, coming out of Golden. Here is I-94. We've got some slick travel. Right lane closed due to a crash on I-70 right now, westbound. That's what that indicates at this time, midday. Here is what it looks like at Lookout Mountain, I-70, milepost 256. It's white. That tractor trailer is off to the side of the roads as well, so just take it real slow. Now, the road surface didn't appear to be completely covered with snow, but there's some challenging travel conditions through the mountains of Colorado right now with the eastern plains of Colorado in the northeastern quadrant from Sterling along 76 through the metro area. There's some accumulating snow and the plows are out. That snow extends into parts of Nebraska as well. And we'll take a look at their road reports right now for you. If you're traveling I-80 out of Denver, out of Cheyenne, and across Nebraska, here's what you need to know. We do have an area of snow. The radar shows central South Dakota right into western parts in the panhandle of Nebraska. And as I close this, we'll get into some areas with the cameras here, zooming in. Now, in purple on the legend here, where the roads are highlighted in purple, that's completely covered road surfaces there. Roads are seasonal when you go through the central part of the state and you get out towards Omaha, no problems there. The problems are all in central and the panhandle of Nebraska. Let's get onto the I-80 high travel corridor there, working its way through Kansas, and let's look into North Platte, shall we? Here's what we got going on right now on the roads in North Platte, and this is, folks, Highway 30, not the interstate, and that tractor trailer there running across some very icy road conditions. So travel slow, stay off of the cruise control in these areas. That can bite you real quick, okay, like a bad angry dog who hasn't had his supper. As we take a look, here is I-80 covered in slushy snow. Okay, things have been very mild across Nebraska all the way up into the Dakotas and Minnesota with this south wind the last few days. So we're having some slushy road problems there, it looks like, as you get closer to the Colorado border. Here's what you can expect. Well, let's just look right at that. Here is I-80 as we wind out of Nebraska and into Colorado. And there is definitely some snow on the road surfaces there. That gets you an idea that Nebraska is impacted mainly in north central parts of the state toward the I-20 corridor in the western one half. Now let's look at South Dakota. South Dakota, here's what you need to know if you're traveling on that I-90 corridor from Rapid City right out towards the I-29 corridor in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. Here's what you need to know there. The impacts on roads are highlighted here in pink, a little different color choice. That's okay. It just gives us the idea that along the I-90 corridor, all the way from Spearfish right through Rapid City, things aren't too bad. We do have some black, which is dry and normal roads. There is in the mountains, in Spearfish, and when you get west of Rapid City in the mountains, there's some areas with some pink, which would be frosty and icy roads. So as I zoom in, and get a closer look at some of these areas of impact. Now, for Rapid City and the travelers on the western side of the state, let's get you into town and take a look at the cameras there on I-90 on the west edge, and not really bad at all. Take a look at this. So we don't have too many impacts on travel today. That's good news. Now the radar has more activity down in the central part of the state. So if we get into the I-90 corridor here in the central part, we can see those impacts. So this is west of Murdo, I-90, milepost 189, and this tractor trailer is driving through. You are looking areas west of Murdo. So keep in mind that the snow is impacting travel there. There's going to be typical wintry travel. Not a lot of accumulation yet there in that area, and that's the good news. If you are south central, leading down into the southern part of the state, we have some areas here that are coming up through Mission. There's accumulation on the two-lane highways there that we look at. There we go, just a little bit. So some snowy roads in South Dakota. Where does it end? Let's check Sioux Falls, shall we? You see the pink lines ending here as we get into the Chamberlain area, and then things look to be blue, which is just wet roads. Things still wet weather on the I-29 corridor and the I-90 interchange through the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. So as we take a peek at one of the cameras here in Sioux Falls, you're going to see just very wet roads, no white yet. So the impacts in South Dakota are in south central and on out into the western reaches of South Dakota, west of Rapid City and south of the I-90 corridor into southern South Dakota. Okay, that checks that state out. How about what's going on in North Dakota right now? North Dakota has a winter weather advisory in the north central part of the state. That is for areas near the Devil's Lake Basin. A lot of folks like to go up to these parts and go ice fishing. It is not time yet, folks. We have been too warm up in the Dakotas and Minnesota, and people have been, well, they've been cracking through the ice. And unfortunately, we lost a life here the other day in Lakes Country, Minnesota. It's just not safe. But if you're traveling up in these areas of North Dakota, the yellow on this page here in the Devil's Lake Basin indicates completely covered or icy roads. Okay, so ice is a problem. As we take you into a camera here on Highway 2 west of Grand Forks, you're going to see that there is some slushy snow that fell in the form of rain and then snow in the overnight hours. And the radar is continually active up here as well when we go out towards areas to the west and south of Fargo. Fargo right now, things are not too bad if you're traveling up through the I-94 or I-29 corridors in eastern North Dakota. It's wet roads now and things are warm enough for rain. But when we get down near, say, the south central part of the state, Ellendale and Wishick, there is some foggy and gray conditions there. We do have some indications of snow in and around the Jamestown area and in and around the Valley City area on I-94. So when you're traveling west of Fargo, keep in mind you may run into some very icy conditions as you dip into the cooler pool of air with this system that is positioned over central North Dakota. So there is some ice there. That is Valley City, just about 45 miles west of the Fargo area. Jamestown, as we look out there, the roads are reported to be blue. That would be generally reporting of wet, some snowy conditions there and wet roads. And indeed, we've had wet, right? But now look at that. That looks like we could be getting some rain on the road. It's ponding and pooling, and there's some snowflakes on the side of the road too. So some slushy conditions here and there, not going to be out of the question. Here we have an incident on I-94. This is out not far from Steele. So again, travel in North Dakota, a little tricky. And when we get up into the Devil's Lake Basin, and let's look at this area here, Carrington, Fezziton, this is Bowden, Glenfield. This is basically Highway 200 running through the state. You can certainly see that there's some snowy impacts there. So we do have some wintry travel in North Dakota, and this is from round 1 of our 2-round system. Now, what you want to keep in mind is that this storm does have some capability to do things today to travel on this Christmas Eve. There's going to be a break for many areas between systems as this one works its way slowly today through the entirety of the day out to the east and north. The impacts will lessen while round 2 develops in the Central Plains. And I do have some graphics to show you what that looks like here behind me. So we'll go ahead and pop that up for you. And let's see if I've got more of a national view. Let's go with this. There are some differences in the computer models with snowfall potential. This is through Wednesday. So this is both systems, wave 1 and wave 2. They're both associated with this Colorado low, but let's take a look at this, shall we? I'm going to move myself out of the way here so you can see. Essentially, the greatest snowfall potential, according to the European model, is going to be in parts of central and eastern South Dakota, much of greater Nebraska, all the way from where it's hitting today in the Panhandle, but mainly in central and eastern Nebraska. Up and down the I-29 corridor, we're going to have, and it's not shown here, but we're going to have concerns with ice on the road, particularly up north in the real cold pool. You get into South Dakota, you get into central Minnesota, and as we go from Christmas Day, late in the day, it's going to start hitting up north with a pocket of some potential ice. On the 29 corridor, it could impact portions of central Minnesota, and the I-94 corridor between Fargo and, say, Alexandria and St. Cloud, those areas. But the greatest snowfall potential will bring some areas that see 8 inches to a foot of snow or more in some of these areas. That's the European model. And now, as we look up in the northern plains, it doesn't look as bad up here with snowfall potential. The best chance of snow in North Dakota will be Fargo and points south. Notice we don't have too snowy of impacts. Notice this, as a meteorologist, this is a ridiculous amount of time forward. This is going to look different, folks. This is going to look way different when this storm is all said and done. It could shift 150 or 200 miles north or south, or even really be turned into more rain on the eastern flank of this storm system with warmer air infiltrating the system. But the way it looks now, we got cold air diving out of the Dakotas. It's going to set the stage for a very, very cold air mass that's going to bring areas of heavy snow. Wind gusts over 40, even 50 miles per hour through South Dakota and through Nebraska, and some ridiculous travel conditions. The Wave 2 event really gets going on Christmas Day. For in the northern plains, it's later in the day. It'll be in the midday hours, so pay attention to your local National Weather Service offices or any media outlets as to what's going on and what road conditions are. And you can do the same by searching road conditions and then type the state, and you'll get sent to a page that allows you to look at pictures of road surfaces just like I was showing you. I hope you and your family have a safe travel season here this holiday season, and take it slow. Remember things like no cruise control when you're driving into snow and icy areas. You just want to stay off that stuff. Slow it way down. Take it where you're comfortable. If you can't see the road and there are blizzard warnings in effect, it's highly advisable to not travel. It's highly advisable to stay put. So I advise you to give yourself travel wiggle room. Give yourself some wiggle room so you can stay an extra day or leave early before the impacts of the storm are expected to hit. And that's up to you to pay attention to the forecast in the area of concern. I hope this was helpful. I'd love to have you like these videos here. Throw a comment down if it's helped you in any way. Have yourself a wonderful, wonderful Christmas Eve, and I'll keep you updated right here as we head through what's going to be a very active Christmas Day into Tuesday and even Wednesday for some of us across the nation's gut. The coasts looking pretty quiet through the holiday travel season. All the best.